what it looks like in an organization to have a great sales manager and what it looks like to have a great sales team. So let's start with the sales manager. Question number one, Matt, is when do I hire a sales manager?
Yeah. It's a tough question, right? Because there's an expense related to it. And I think that's probably the biggest hurdle that people need to get over. Especially if you got a team that's been working with you directly for a while, which is kind of a good comfort zone, right? There's uh, the familiarity of we know what we're doing, we know how to do it. What do I need to interject somebody else in here for, right? So to give kind of I guess, 30,000-foot view at this answer, so to speak, right? If you're in a position where you're very happy with the size and revenue you're doing, then you probably don't need to hire a manager. But if you want to grow, right, that's probably the simplest kind of question asked. Do you want to grow? Then you need to hire somebody to manage that department and manage those people, right? And manage is a very, very big word when it comes to like what it is that they need to do. But if you're going to add more players and you're going to increase their performance, the thing that I've always looked at as a manager, right, myself included in this, is I'm a resource for the team that's underneath of me, right? Because they can't have direct access maybe to an owner or a general manager every single second of the day. So if you're ready to grow and you want to grow and you've decided it's that time, then you have to ask yourself the second question is, am I a adequate or beyond adequate, like more than adequate resource for the people that are in this department?
Yeah.
If the answer has any level of hesitation to it, then it's the time to hire that person. If it's you miss a call, you can't do all of the trainings, you can't do all of the follow-ups that are needed for this position as a sales rep, then you're not an adequate resource for your people. And that's not a bad thing. Like you have to work on the business, right? They need you to do other things as well too.
Yeah.
So then it's time to provide them a better tool and a better resource, and that person and that individual that can come in and help be a leader of that department and a sounding board or, calming voice when it's needed kind of thing. So, for every business, there are probably different, data points and numbers and KPIs that are going to suggest different things based off of your P&L. But at its simplest, kind of most generic form, are you ready to grow? And secondary question to that, if the answer is yes, then do you feel like you are a good enough resource for your people? And when I say like, not like, some of the time, all of the time, right? Your people are in the home till 6:30, 7:30, 8 o'clock at night on Saturdays and Sundays and all of the other holidays that, you might be wanting to be with your family or doing the other things, which you've earned, right? You're running your business. So, if the answer is any hesitation to saying yes, then it's time. And there are ways to like do the math and figure out how to put the salary together and the bonus structure and all of those things where it's a performance-based position, just like your sales reps. So if we're going to get something out of it, or if we're going to put something in it, we better get something out of it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it answers really well. And, in the world that I live in, I get to talk to a lot of owners. Yeah, I get to hear from them. And one thing that I will add to that is, as an owner, if you're wearing all the hats, which hat do you like wearing the least? Because sometimes that's a good indication too. I've talked to a lot of owners that are like, I just don't know how to work with my sales team.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, that's probably a good indication that we can go find somebody that does know how to work with them. And so as an owner, really pay attention to your own, which hat do you not want to put on in the morning? Let's get rid of that one. Let's give it to somebody that wants to wear it.
It's a really great point. I think too, when you look at most of the owners in our world, not all, and most is probably even a strong word, but many of the owners, right? We got into this because they wanted to create some sort of freedom for their family. So like that's the first start of this. I wanted to be a business owner so I could create freedom for me and my family financially and from a time standpoint.
Yep.
So if you're wearing all the hats, like that flies in the face of that. Like definitely. And how much longer are you going to continue to say, well, next month when we get through this, or next quarter when we get through this, then we can do the thing that gets the time back, right? It doesn't happen, because like the bigger you get and the more things you figure out, the more opportunity there is, which means the more time that gets sucked away from you. So you need people to bring those things in. But to your point, I think a lot of us got into this, or a lot of owners got into this rather because, like, hey, I'm really good at dealing with a customer, or I'm really good at the physical thing that we sell and do and install, and I can make a business out of it. And maybe I'm even really good at running a business, but it might not be that I'm good at running marketing teams. It might not be that I'm good at running sales teams or installation crews. And you just have to be very good and self-aware of what your strengths and weaknesses are.
Yeah.
I'd also caution you on holding on to your strength for too long, because it'll only ever be your personality at that point, as opposed to the company's personality that you're trying to build. GS should have you at your core, but if you're bringing in good, talented people that have, alignment with your culture, then you need to sprinkle a lot of them in there as well too, because that's what kind of makes for a successful business in the long run. Is if we all are running towards the same finish line, but maybe at slightly different angles, and maybe Joe's angle's better today and Sarah's angle's better tomorrow. And the more people I can introduce to that, the better.
Yep. Yeah. And I like the word. I think it's a good way to step into the next question. As you talked about culture, if we assume for a second that the owner has done some of the work to do mission, vision, values, people like us do things like this type of work, and the owner has started to do that. Why don't you talk a little bit about the type of culture that a sales team should have, or can be developed, and that a sales manager maybe will be better suited to develop that in that team than maybe the owner?
Yeah. So what I've always, you're trying to balance this world of competitive and team at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's where having somebody hands-on all the time is necessary, because it's a very delicate balance that I want everybody in that room to be in competition with each other, but also against the world at the same time together. Right. And you got to have a very strong personality that's in there, that can understand the other strong personalities that are in there, and know when they need to push the right button, they need to back off, they need to pull this person aside and do some extra coaching, or pull this person aside, just give them a hug. Right.
Yeah.
And there's a time and balance that goes along with that, and learning that happens, that is uh, just not possible unless you're there with them every day, talking to them on the phone every day. And that's, I think, that the hard thing for an owner, when they give it up, is that you feel like you've lost a little touch with it, because you're letting somebody else do that. But you got to let them do it, and you got to let them do it, kind of like first before you jump in. So when it comes to like the culture, I think, whenever I hired somebody, I always hired somebody and said, like, I have kind of one overarching expectation. It's that we understand that we're all adults and professionals, right? There's probably a third thing in there that the manager needs to be aware of. Adults, professionals is an expectation, but they're also human beings. Okay. And that person that you're going to hire isn't always going to be the best salesperson. Like, maybe they weren't top of their board. They're probably average to slightly above average, right? They understand the process, and they've had success, and they've shown growth, and all of those things you want from somebody that is going to be teaching your process.
Yep.
But what they really understand is like the person in front of them, and how to coach them and be there for them and talk them off the ledge. So like, I had somebody, when I was going through my first interview process ever to become a manager in this world, asked me if I was prepared or had a background in psychology in any way.
Yeah.
And I said, I mean, I probably should see a psychologist every now and again for all the things you listen to that we do, right? But I'm a sales rep, so that makes sense based on why you're asking this question. But it was really, I don't know that it was a question to qualify me as to whether or not I was going to get the job, if I'm being honest. But I think it was a question to prepare me for a part of the job that I maybe as a young, individual was not necessarily aware of, right? It's not all X's and O's.
Yep.
It's not all black and white spreadsheets. It's people inside of those numbers. So,
Yeah.
what we tried to teach our managers and anybody that we were hiring was that the numbers are the start of your story. The person is the finish of it. Right. So we need to understand what the numbers are telling us, that there's either something going right or there's something going wrong. And the person is the reason something's going right or something's going wrong. And it's your job to make sure you understand that person and what influences their right and wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I do have a degree in psychology.
Yeah.
And it's very funny to have people walk through my office and I'm able to kind of analyze them. I don't, tear anybody down. I just understand.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, oh, I'm going to be able to interact with you at this level. And there is tremendous value in really having a lens through which you can appreciate different people.
Yep.
Do you have a favorite personality typing tool when thinking about salespeople? There's a bunch out there. I know some organizations use the DISC.
Yep.
I'm a fan of StrengthsFinder.
Mm-hmm.
But do you do any assessments with new hires?
So I've done all of them, and I think that there is value in every one of them. Okay. Depends on your organization and like how you're evaluating. What I stress to anybody that I'm working with now, as an advisor, to their roles and to their business is whatever we go with, whatever we decide to go with needs to be systematic and measurable. That's the only way any of those work, I think, for, people that are using them, right? Because they all have value and merit. I'm sure you studied half of those, questions. And when you were getting your degrees they're all based in foundational psychology. So like they are based in science. So they're worthwhile. I don't think I've ever run into one that I would say like that was a waste of time. But it's only a waste of time if you don't do it the same way with everybody.
Yep.
Because what you're building for yourself when you start doing one of those things, you're building in a way your own assessment. Because what you'll end up with is Johnny and Susan, who you hired, who ran through this, and you said, well, we like this and this about their personality test. Well, John and Susie are now a case study for whether or not your theory on this or this being successful is right or not, right? And specifically, we asked this question to get this answer. Well, maybe it's not that the answer is bad, but maybe the question is bad. Maybe we need to change the question, right? So what I stressed to our teams when we were building our hiring process and going through okay, here's what we're going to ask and how we're going to ask it. There were a few foundational questions that were asked every single time, and the answer was recorded every single time, word for word.
Yep.
So that way, when we all sat down and we said, okay, we're going to give this person a shot or we're not, we could go back through those list of questions. We could say like, this is why, and this is why not. And then we would have a whole, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, hopefully for that rep to go like, yep, those are the answers or the type of answers that we're looking for in this questionnaire. Couple that with a DISC or, the index, the personality index or whatever it is. Some of those are really, really good. And again, I know people that have a lot of success with them. I know people that have said, I don't think it's worth the money. And I would argue that people that say it's not worth the money, it's because they're not doing it the same way every single time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly right. I've had a lot of people come to me and say, oh, which personality type tool should I use? And I say, the one that you're willing to learn. It doesn't matter. You can pay $50 for an online assessment and skim it and go, okay, that doesn't good if you don't actually learn it and understand it. And a lot of these tools are very overlapping, right? They have tons of similarities. What they're trying to do for people is give you a common language in which to speak. And so if you pick one, own it. This is ours. This is the way we do it. This is the language we use. And then, like what you talked about, you need to know what winning looks like.
Yeah.
And the best way to do that is create a process that you can understand.
Absolutely. Well, and I'll ask you a follow-up question on it because you have a deeper knowledge of it than I do based off of your piece of paper it's hanging on the wall. Um, the the foundation of those from what I have had experience with is not necessarily whether or not this is the right person to hire or not, right? I think there's still like this is a good barometer for like this is a personality that could be successful, but they're not foolproof.
Yep.
I think where they are foolproof though is okay, if we're going to hire this person, this is how we need to talk, teach, and communicate to this person.
Yep.
And that's where I feel like the strength is. I mean, but correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like that's the reason a lot of those tests were built was okay, this is how this person acts, learns, and behaves.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's to, I mean, number one is know yourself. You take the test, so you know yourself. You have language to describe yourself. And then number two is to understand others. And it is great. I say, with a lot of these tools, I say they reveal a preference. Humans are so capable of changing their minds in the moment.
Yeah.
That you might have a preference to be high D on the disc, but a different circumstance is going to make that low. And so you're going to behave differently. And so it is no indication of every time they'll behave this way, but it is a starting point and a preference that's really helpful when talking to people. I coach people on the side as well. And I have some clients that they're high energy. And I know that if I need to get something through to them, I have to match their energy in that moment to show them that I am as excited as they are. And I'm a very monotone person, right? I'm pretty mellow and I live my life in a pretty steady way. But I coach people that are all over the place. And if I recognize something that they need to understand, I get animated. I wave my hands in the air and I point fingers at them and I get as excited. I raise my voice and just understanding that where I can really impact them by understanding communication doesn't have to be the way I do it.
Yeah. No, it's both. I mean, mirroring's an important thing, right? I mean, it's part of the techniques we work on when we're trying to sell somebody something, right? Is people buy from people they know, like, and trust, right? Well, if I act like you and look like you, then you have a tendency to like and trust me. But that doesn't just stop at buying. Like learning is technically buying, right? Like when you sit in and lean in and listen to a lecture a little bit more intently, you're buying something from the person giving the lecture. You're buying what they're telling you, right? You might not write a check for it, right? But you're still buying it as fact or truth or like the thing you need to do or whatever it is. And it's funny how we all gravitate towards those that are like us, right? We all turn into the channel that we like and listen to that channel for the news and that kind of thing because it's more like me. It's more like what I do. Well, the more that we can do that when we're coaching and teaching, right? Again, and sometimes you need to do it. Sometimes you need to be the exact opposite because you need to shake somebody and rattle them. But like if I need to bring you along, typically the best process is to be on your level, right? And same with you. So, and yeah, you do a phenomenal job of that.
Yeah. Any red flags that you've come across when hiring people for the sales manager position?
Yeah, this is a weird one, right? But sales people in general are usually they want to know one thing when they're going for a job, right? It's how much can I make, and like what's the course record and where's the first tee, right? Like that's the question, right?
Yeah.
But it's how much can they make? That can't be the only motivation for a manager.
Sure.
Typically, your salespeople, like your top salespeople, are going to make as much, if not more, than your sales manager. So if that's the reason that they're motivated, well, don't get me wrong, we still want them to be motivated by bonus and making more money and growing the team, right? But if that is like the sole thing that you're picking up on, then they're not invested in people. And what you end up with is a bad culture fit, like we started talking about. You're going to end up with a turnover machine because They don't care who you are and what you are. Like, I need to get you in and out of here. You're not helping me make my bonus. Yes, that's important, and that's part of the conversation. But again, it's kind of a hard thing to quantify during your interview process, but you know it when you see it. You know the way the questions are asked and the way the preference in the conversation goes, right? If I were ever interviewing somebody and they didn't ask me about the current team, no chance.
Sure.
Right. If I were ever asking somebody and they didn't ask me, so like a very specific question I wait for somebody to ask me is, okay, what's the tenure of the current team?
Mhm.
Well, it's on average 7-8 years is probably about where our average rep is. Okay, great. So what do you think the next question is that should be in that case from that person if they're outside your organization?
Yeah. Yeah. You
For
tell me.
me, for me, it's okay. Out of curiosity, I'm very happy that I'm sitting here and that you've chose me to, give a chance to interview in this process, but why nobody internally?
Mhm. Yeah.
Is it that nobody wanted this job? Or is it that you feel like you need to bring somebody from the outside? And if so, why?
Yeah.
What is it about the current team, the current culture that needs fixing?
Yep.
Like if questions like that aren't being asked,
Yep.
this is probably not the right fit to
Yeah.
be that kind of like all-encompassing leader, right?
Mhm.
They maybe not are ready to dive into team dynamics.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. That's really powerful. That was the next question I was going to ask you was about the sales manager's questions. Like, and you answered it for me, so I don't even have to ask it, but that is really powerful and something for the owners to really pay attention to is you don't want somebody that's good at sales necessarily leading your sales team. You want
Yeah.
somebody good at leading a team, leading
Right.
your sales team.
Yeah.
But
Typically, it's a funny thing, right? Typically, those guys and gals that are the best at doing it, highest rate, they're very good at doing, but maybe not knowing what they're doing. Um, they also tend to be much heavier me people. And that's not, I don't use the word I people, right? Me is, I think, a little softer than I. Like, so that's why I've always used that. They definitely still are a good culture fit for you. Otherwise, you wouldn't have them around.
yep,
But they're more interested in taking care of their world first, and then like as a byproduct will help the rest of the world, kind of. You need people like that on your sales team. Like that's a healthy sales organization. Every now and again you got to bring that person back in line, but for the most part they are totally right in step with everybody else, right? But that person is generally not your best leader, and some of that is because of like their personality, what they're focused on first, and the other part of it is they may not be that great at coaching because they've always been able to just kind of do it. Think about like the best like athlete on your baseball team or basketball team or football team. They typically don't turn into the best coach,
yep,
right? Like I mean, there's a reason guys like Mark McGuire aren't like hitting coaches anymore, right? Or like uh, Barry Bonds. Like, no disrespect to them, those guys are, in my book, Hall of Famers. Like they deserve. They're the best of the best. But like translating, like deep diving into mechanics of a swing might not be their strength because they just knew how to do it inherently, for so long that they maybe forgot the steps on how to get there. But the guy that's got to literally think about every single step every single day and is still successful on a relatively high level, that's somebody that could teach other people how to do it.
yep, yeah. Well, that's a great point. You talked about. I would like the interviewee to ask me why I haven't hired internally. Kind of a entertaining story because I've been doing this for a while now. We had a company we worked with 4 years ago now, and we had a meeting with the general manager, and he said, "I need to bring this guy in," and he was a salesperson. I said, "Why are you bringing the sales guy into this meeting?" And he goes, "Oh, you didn't know? He's the owner." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, the owner figured out that his skill set is selling. He doesn't want to run the company. He wants to sell." And he goes, "But this is a decision that he needs to be a part of." And so I just thought that was fascinating. The self-awareness of that owner to say, I should not be the general manager of this company. I have the vision, I have the capacity for risk. I know that I can run a company, but I'm going to actually be out selling because that's where I belong. I just really interesting story. A lot of people accidentally climb the ladder one rung too high.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the dissatisfaction and the burnout really tends to happen in organizations is you were a phenomenal salesperson and either you decided or somebody told you, you should be a manager. And like you said, if you don't have a lens for people and an interest or skill set in teaching, then you're probably not meant to be the manager. And your sports analogies are so easy to make, but you're exactly right. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a it's an interesting thing because like my wife has uh, been with me through this entire journey in this industry in this career, right? And she has sat and listened on the other end, of a speakerphone call with a rep when we're driving to a family function or a dinner, or we're, on a weekend getaway or something, and I got to step away for 5, 10 minutes, right? And or we're locked in the car and she hears every word of it. In fact, sometimes she's even like interrupted and like said, the answer to this, you can do the things so well, which has always been fun because they won't talk back to her. They'll talk
That's
back,
right.
you know. But I think one of the things that has she works in a very siloed role. She's extremely good at what she does, but she doesn't work or rely on others to be successful at her job. And every time I get off one of those calls, it reinforces that she's in the right spot for her. And she will make some sort of comment, about that. And that's not disparaging to those guys, but just
Yeah.
the reason I bring it up is the weight that you need to be prepared to take on as a manager of salespeople, specifically salespeople in this industry where it is feast or famine every single day.
Yep.
And you're either putting food on your table or you're not. That's a lot. And there's a lot of stress and anxiety and that comes with that. And you need to be prepared to field the phone call where they are flying off the handle because they shouldn't have been sent here.
Yep.
And you can't have an emotional reaction to it because all you're saying in that moment is it's right to be emotional about this.
Yep.
So you have to be very good at taking a breath and going, I hear what you're saying, but let's think about this.
Yep.
Right. Or you have to be good about like, hey, this person's in a slump and I need to know ways to get this person on track and this person on track. And I need to be the point of phone call when they feel like they're right at the ledge. Like they need to know that my phone is on and I'm going to be there to say like, hey man, like you've done this for 10 years. You know what you're doing. Yes, you've hit a bad streak, but we're going to be okay. Right. So
Yep.
just go have fun in your next appointment. Don't worry about selling anything. Oh, well, they sell the next 2 or 3.
Yep.
But it's funny because I would get off those phone calls. My wife would say like, you know, they call you for that stuff all the time. Like, yeah, that's my job. Right.
Yeah.
And then she would ask, well, who takes that call for you? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
you do. Right. It's like, you're my sounding board because I can't do that to them.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Because the second I show any kind of teetering, then it's just not that you can't be a human being with them, right? Like be a human being, but you need to also be the steady in the storm, and that's a hard thing to do all the time when you got, I've had as many as 30 guys, I think, underneath me at any point in time, 70 in a region that were reporting to us. Like, so you imagine taking those phone calls is nonstop.
Yep.
Uh, and everybody's got a thing at home or at work or some combination of the two. And then, haven't made money in a week and everybody's got problems all day, every day. And my job is to make sure that, not to solve every one of them, but to at least hear all of them.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I've had plenty of people over the years call me managers or owners that are in the role of sales manager. And they call me and they're like, hey, just got off the phone with one of my sales guys. They had to drive, across the state for an appointment, and it was an asphalt driveway, some horrible thing that they couldn't even bid. And they're like, I listened to them. I told them I'd give you a call. you know, and they're like, to your point, they listened, they reflected back to their sales guy the frustration, and they offered a solution. Yep. Now on the phone call with me, the solution was we couldn't have fixed it. You know, we couldn't have done any better. All we can do is say we hear you, and we are going to um like move that down the chain. Like we're going to pass the information along.
I, yep. It's, I used to tell my guys that, you're not, I will listen to anything you got to say, right? Within reason, obviously, but, I'll listen to it, and you have my word that I'll listen to it. I might not be able to do something about it every time.
Yeah.
And even when I can do something about it, you may not love the thing that I can do.
Yeah.
But know this, right? And I started off every tenure with every team with, I will never make a decision or make an effort to do something unless I believe it can have a positive or a neutral impact on you and your livelihood.
Yeah.
And if you believe that every part of my decision, or that at the base of every one of the decisions I make, rather, is that foundational, like, core value, then you're going to trust me to do the things I need to do and get you where you need to go. Right. And if I push back on an idea or a thought that you have, know that it's because I think we're maybe wasting our time on something that's not going to have a positive or neutral impact on your livelihood and, and yourself. So it's not worth our time at that point. We need to find a way to move on from it, and not to belittle your initial knee-jerk reaction. You're a human being. Emotions happen. That happens. I've done it. I've been there. I have, we joke all the time about conflict between sales and marketing. I have used 4-letter words, the marketing people I've been sent to polices, right? But, I think one of the things you get when you step back, like in that example you gave, I bet if they stepped back and they looked at it, out of the last 20 appointments that rep had run, maybe it was the second of 2 that were like that. And again, does it take the sting away from that day? No, it doesn't. It still stinks to drive across the state and be at a position where you've spent gas money and you're away from probably like the kids' soccer game, or could have gone to the dinner with your wife or whatever it is. Like, I get that. That stinks. And I would use a lot of other language, but hopefully other people will watch this and their kids might be in a car and that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, it's a small percentage of it. And that's why we get paid what we get paid. Because if it weren't that, if every job we showed up to was, hey, this is great, here's the price, cool, sign the contract, then it would be an hourly position that we would pay somebody in a truck to go pick up contracts with, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You take the good with the bad. And yes, bring it to my attention, because if the percentages get out of line, that's part of my job too, is to make sure that, to your point, I push it up the line and make sure that something gets done about it when it needs to get done about it.
Yeah. Some of the biggest struggles, the phone calls I've had where they were the hardest to handle, was where the manager was a high empathy individual. And you touched on a lot of the sales people are me focused, and they are profit driven, they're achievement driven, and when you get a higher empathy sales manager, it's a struggle because they think they're supposed to solve all the problems. But on a sales team, there's just a steady stream of problems that aren't actually supposed to be solved. They're just a part of the job.
Some of them are part of the job. I'll give you a story. So I had a manager that worked for me not too long ago, and he was a high energy guy, and he cared. He really cared. And I will give him that. He really cared about his people. But I could see him. I had a glass door. He'd pacing in front of my door, and I was like, hey, I was working on something. I was like, do you need to come in? And he, all but, Kramered the door in, from side. Right? We got a huge problem. I was like, okay, put my stuff to the side and let's talk about it. What do we get? The one parties are out of control. I'm taking calls left and right. Like, the marketing team's not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Our one party rate is, how can we ever achieve our numbers? And as he is and I'm listening, right? Go on. go on. And he later on would tell me like, this is both what he loved and hated about me was like, I wouldn't answer or interject until you'd given me all of your emotion and all of your conversation. And, anyway, he goes on, and as he's going on, I pull up, right? And I just, because I know the numbers in the back of my head, and maybe within a point or two, right? But I know them. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to look just to make sure that what I remember is right. And then it gets done, and I said, okay. So I said, is that everything, right? That's the issue we got going on right now? That's what you're feeling from the team? Absolutely. And I said, there's nothing else. And nope, that's it. I said, okay. And I flipped my screen around. I said, so our one party rate is at 11%. It's actually at 10% for the month. So it's lower than our annual average. We want to keep below 12% for the year. So here's the question I have for you. And you can take this back to the team. I will focus on whatever we believe is going to make us more successful. Do you want me to focus on 10% of our leads? Or do you want me to focus on the other 90%? And he just looks at me and goes, damn it.
Yep.
I was like, yeah, look, you had a rep that ran like 2 or 3 in a row, and then probably another one that had run 1 or 2 of them, and they talked. And then they came to you with just the world's on fire.
Yep.
And if we just take a moment to breathe and you go like, hey, that's terrible. I'm really sorry you dealt with that. Unfortunately in our world, like this happens from time to time, but let's look at the numbers together. Yeah. You know what? You're higher this week or over the last couple of days, but if you look at it over the course of this period of time, would you want us to change that in any way? Okay. So let's focus on the ones that you can get or that you got a better shot at getting. Also, let's keep in mind that those one party people probably didn't say like, hey, company A that we work for, forget them. Only one of us is going to that appointment. We're going to set up 3 other appointments and we're going to be here. We're going to set aside 3 hours of time for that guy together. So the likelihood is that that's how they're running all of their appointments. Isn't it fair to say? Because they're busy and they got kids and they got this, that, or the other. And like, they want to get this done, but maybe they can't both be present all of the time. Is there a chance of that? Yeah, there is. Okay. So if you go in there and give them a good show and sell that one person, you got a better shot than the other 2 guys that had the same reaction you're having now. Selling the whole job. Fair enough. But also at the same time, like, don't sell any of them. Let's focus on the other 90%. How about that? And it was funny because he was just like, and that was kind of the running joke was like, if you're going to go complain about something, like he'll listen, but you better be prepared to have it like just poked holes in if you don't know all of the angles. And to an extent, that got to be a bad thing because like some guys are like, he just is going to show me why it's wrong. But, at the same time, I wouldn't have shown it to you if it were something that I didn't already stay on top of and know. Right. So again, it's just one of those things where if you can slow down and you take a breath, like the world's on fire because the blinders are on for this rep and the last day or 2 have been bad. And yes, you want to listen, but you cannot wear that as a manager. Like you have to be able to hold the emotion out and talk about facts because I cannot fix emotion. I can fix facts. If facts are off, then I got to go to work. But if the facts are not off, then we're just using emotion to skew it. We got to rework this end of it a little bit.
Yeah. And there's no promises that can be made. I mean, to your point, I looked at the numbers, man, and we can't make this better. So I'm not going to tell you something that will happen that won't happen because then we're actually both unhappy.
Correct.
I appreciate those conversations a lot because, we schedule 250, 300 appointments a week here at Powerful. And it seems like our customers go, through waves of, everything's a one-legger or, everything's, aggregate or, they come at us with waves of this didn't work or your sales, all of our appointments are scheduled across, the service area from each other. And I listen and I'm like, yep, I understand. But historically, is this a problem? And they're like, well, no, that's why we're so confused. And I'm like, and it will continue to not be a problem. But it did happen a couple times in a row. And then for my team, it's just, hey, guys, you already do an exceptional job. I'm not telling you you're not doing an exceptional job. but we're just going to reiterate that this is who we are and this is what we do.
Just keep an eye on it. Right. And I think that's the thing, is where emotion comes into play on all of these things, because we feel like somebody's got an ulterior like agenda or alternate agenda, right? Competing agendas is a term I would use on a regular basis. Well, marketing's job is to set all the leads. They just need to set as many as they can. Well, yes, they do need to set a lot of leads, but if they don't sell, there is no money to put into marketing. Like, we need to understand how this whole equation feeds itself, right? So, if it's not good for us, it's not good for them too. Like, maybe not today, yeah, if you set 100 appointments, like, great, like we got 100 appointments, but like if all 100 were no shows, not homes, one parties, and, aggregate, you're probably going to lose some customers, which isn't good, right? So if the whole goal for all of us is to win, then, going back to a sports analogy, then like the best players are playing, right?
Yep.
And the players that come off the bench are coming off the bench because they're really good in that role, and that's our best chance at winning this game. And Johnny's not sitting on the bench because the coach doesn't like him. Johnny's sitting on the bench because he's not good enough to get in the game right now, right? And that's just the reality of it. So, to bring that back to what we do, like, marketing doesn't want to send you on a bunch of bad leads, because then I'm going to go in and yell at marketing and go like, I'm taking your money away, and like, you're not doing this anymore, and like, you got to downsize, and like, it's bad for their room too. Plus, they know you're upset with them, which is even worse because you're their teammate.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's just it's a thing that everybody, again, emotion is real and important. And this is a kind of tying it back to the manager conversation. This is the world the manager lives in.
Yep.
All the while needing to get them to do a little bit more efficiently, a little bit more consistently, right? And man, it's a tough world. And the bigger downside to it, Jay, this is the thing, is like, hiring the person is generally pretty easy.
Yeah.
Knowing when to hire them is easy too. Pulling, making the decisions to do it, that's the hard part, because you got to spend the money, right? Training a manager, that's where 90% of companies fall short. It's like the most undertrained and supported role is that manager's role across all companies I've ever seen. Sales manager, marketing manager, whatever it is, that mid-level manager. I joked with you at one point. I think I told you, like, when I got first hired, it was, here's your team, here's what we sell, and there's the CRM. Good luck to you. Like, that was essentially the training. And I mean, thank God I had coaching experience before that, and I knew how to talk to people, and I could kind of fake the rest of it. So, and I had some really good people around me that, were willing to mentor me in some areas and open up their books on what they'd tried and not tried. But you need to spend as much time training your manager as you would a sales rep. And that's a thing that, like, we hired this person, they know what they're doing, like, go get them. Like, yes and no.
Yeah.
So
that's a great comment there too, is, a lot of owners or, general managers say, oh, we need this position, and they need to remember that they're not hiring it to wash their hands of it.
Right.
And I've been guilty of that at times, where I'm like, sweet, I finally have somebody in this position, so I don't have to babysit. Or I don't have to give reports every day to make sure they're doing their job. And then a month goes by quickly because time flies, and I realize I haven't even talked to them. And then come to find out they're unhappy, or they're looking for another job, or they've got problems that they can't solve on their own. And I'm like, oh man, I need to make sure I'm still connected to you, even though you're doing a great job.
Yeah. No, it's the connection's important. Yeah. And where it gets lost, I think, to your point, right? Like, I don't have to do this, I can wash my hands of it. Where you have to check yourself as an owner on this is when you're tying that to how much you're paying in a salary for that person. Well, I'm paying this much for the salary, I shouldn't have to do this stuff. You and I have talked about, like, understanding that, like, I am not the same as everybody that works for me, or not the same that everybody works with me. And that's a hard thing to reconcile especially for an owner. Like, this is your business, this is your family livelihood. Why doesn't everybody care the same way you do? Well, they never will, not to the exact same level. Like, some of them are going to care real close,
Yeah.
but not quite the exact same way that you care, right? And they're going to care a lot. So don't get me wrong. Don't take that as like you shouldn't expect your people to care. You should very much expect your people to care. But if your expectation is that they care the same way you do, you're going to be disappointed constantly. Yeah. And if the expectation is that, like, I signed on the bottom line to pay this person $150,000 a year or whatever it is, right? They should just, I shouldn't have to do anything. Yeah. They still need to know, you say it all the time, what winning looks like, right? They, as simple as that sounds, like, every day they need to know what winning looks like, just like the reps underneath of them need to know what winning looks like. The advantage here is that you get to communicate with one, not 7, 10, 15. Yep. They are your conduit to your sales team.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Well, we didn't even get to talking about actually hiring the salesperson, but we rambled on and on here. I think there could be hours and hours and hours just talking about management and the different roles in the businesses that we are a part of. So I think we can wrap it up. Are there any last thoughts or tips or tricks when you're thinking about dealing with sales managers on your team?
Yeah, I would tell you this is, I think that one quality I think I was looking for in them is they have to be able to hold attention and not hold it. They have to be able to demand attention, right? They're going to be in front of the strongest personalities in your building.
Sure.
When they speak, the room needs to go quiet.
Yeah.
And that is a hard thing to, like, quantify and tell you, like, well, if they say this, then you know that they'll do that. But you kind of know that personality when you're talking to them. They don't need to be dominant, but they need to be commanding, right? And I think that that's an interesting thing. And work with them on how meetings get run. That's another area that, man, I just see it's done so poorly on a regular basis. Understand the investment in time and money that goes into a sales meeting. So, and if they can't command attention, no matter how much you teach them, it's not going to go well. So, needs to be that type of personality for sure.
That's good. Sounds like we have another show lined up. How to run a good meeting.
Yeah, be a good one for sure. Yeah, it's a good topic. I get asked that a lot.
Yeah. How many people have said this meeting could have been an email, right? It's like, you got to run a good meeting for people that want to show up.
I may have been one of those people at certain points in my life. There's no doubt about that. And yeah, it's so many of those meetings are, the value has to be in it for the people that are attending the meeting, not the person giving the meeting. And anytime somebody walks away saying it could have been a memo, then the value was solely for the person giving the meeting, not the people in the room.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, if anybody that's listening, and I think we have one listener so far early on in this, if you have any questions for us, feel free to reach out. And if you'd like to work with Matt or myself in the sales and marketing space, reach out, connect with us, and we will definitely be excited and happy to take your call. So, all right. Until next time.
Look forward to it. See you guys.